Friends, welcome. My name is James Morton, and I'm president here of the Interfaith Center. All of our staff is here, and we're really immensely grateful for the support that's making this press conference a possibility. As you're all well aware, we have many religious traditions present in this room who will speak out of their own tradition and their own heart about what's happened in the last 2 days. The principal spotlight of the press conference, however, is on our members from the Islamic community in New York who have, with their bodies, been totally involved in this, and giving blood, and on the police department and the fire department, suffering, but who, in distinction from many other New Yorkers, have had a lot of backlash and turning against them as perpetrators, slurs, you know what happens. And so it's so important that they have an opportunity for the press to express their own hearts and the truth of the situation from their perspective. Timur Uskayev is a member of our staff and has been crucial with Matt Weiner, Sasha, Stephen in organizing this, but I'm asking Timur to really be the master of ceremonies in the organization of it now. So I introduce to you Timur Uskayev.
How you doing? Assalamu alaikum. Today's event is a press conference by representatives of many religious communities of New York City. If at some point it seems that event is a little bit chaotic, we organized it at the very last minute, so forgive us for that. You have the handouts which have the order of the appearance of everybody who will speak. At this moment, I would like to ask everybody who will make the statement, every religious leader or representative of a religious community, please come here. The statements will be 1 minute long, and we will begin with Sheikh Abdallah Latif Ali, the chairman of the Imams Council of New York.
Thank you, Timur. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praises are due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. We want to thank our dear friend, Dean Morton, for this activity. When I called him on the phone, it turned out that he was on the other line trying to call me. And I guess we're really soul brothers in that we keep thinking about similar things. The tragedy that has happened here in New York is so immense, so heartbreaking. In fact, as you say, it's hard even to begin to process it, digest it, and the Creator of all the world is kind of blessed me in terms of breaking it down to a piece small enough for me to digest it. A very close friend of mine, Imam Dr. Muhammad Hatim, on the 11th of September was in his office, his federal office building, just north of Chambers Street. Somebody told him that a plane hit the World Trade Center, and he looked out the window. He looked out the window just in time to see the second plane hit. Muhammad, in terms of the kind of man that he is, was heartbroken. He didn't know what to do. He was in a federal building. Should he get out of there? What should he do? He's a religious leader. He ended up leaving the building and just wandering north because they wouldn't let him go south. I just spoke with him before this program started. He's home, he's dazed. He says every time he closes his eye, he sees that plane hit that building. And I just mention that because I think that's what we're all going through now, flashbacks. Terrible flashbacks of this event. And these flashbacks are haunting us and we don't really know what to do. And those of us of faith, we reach for that one firm grasp. That's our spiritual religious cord, and try to pull that as hard as we can. So we thank each of you for coming out this morning. We thank our co-religionists from the other communities for coming out, because they set the tone and the flavor of what is New York. So I'll end my comments, because you're going to hear many other comments, in saying that the Imams Council of New York is an organization of religious spiritual leaders, and we're pulling to make this one city. We find ourselves with mixed emotions. One emotion is the deep hurt and grieving for those who were killed and wounded. The other one you'll hear within the Muslim community is deep anxiety in terms of what will take place next. Many loss of innocent lives on the 11th. Our prayer is that the families and the loved ones can find some peace as we struggle with those losses. And then we ask everybody to pray for the future, because we don't want more innocent lives, more people killed, more people maimed. And the anxiety, one thing when you live in a society like America, every time something happens, you say, oh, this is terrible. But was it a member of my community that did this? Will this cause my community to be the scapegoat? Do I have to hide because some deranged member of my community did this? When the Prime Minister Rabin was killed, I had that feeling. I was like hiding, thinking maybe a Muslim was involved. Rabbi Peter Rubenstein called me. And as him and I spoke, I began to realize I needed to focus on the great loss of this peacemaker. And I mention that now because we desperately need peacemakers. Please remember the dead and the wounded in your prayers. Let us pray for each other. Peace be upon you.
We have some people who agreed to speak are on their way. They're not yet here. Brother Kevin James, who is a firefighter and the president of the Islamic Society of the Fire Department personnel, could not come. The next person who will read a statement is Mr. Tariqur Rahman of Islamic Circle of North America. And he will also read a statement by Mr. Kevin James.
Assalamu alaikum. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent and most merciful, I start my speech with one ayah which translates, and kill not life that Allah has made sacred. This is the teachings of Muslims and Islam. On September 11, 2001, a tragedy has occurred. We in the Muslim community is outraged by this senseless act of violence. Our way of life, Islam, the way of peace, does not permit such unjust actions. We condemn terrorist acts against Muslims and non-Muslims alike. My dear respected brothers and sisters, let me share what which happened in my home. I had a very close friend who was in World Trade Center number 1. When the first plane hit at that building, he came out and went to World Trade number 2 to another friend. And he spoke from there that I'm okay, I'm in second building. And as you know, that after a while that building was struck, and then until this point we don't have any trace of that person. Just last week, our children and we were enjoying in great adventure with that family, with that brother. But today, among others, he is also missing one of them. As all New Yorkers, all USA, everybody is feeling the pain. We also are one of them as a Muslim community. But as brother has said, there is another thing, another aspects of that. When my daughter today want to go out, as usual, as a Muslim lady, she is 11th grade. She was worried about her hijab. She said, I don't know if I can go that way or not. I said, don't worry, nobody will bother you. Because we are same. Muslims or non-Muslims, we are Americans. And tell them, as you are angered, same with me. I am among you. Don't count me out. You have the same pain as I have. So, this is the teachings, this is the things I'm teaching my children, that go out, tell them, tell the people. You have to communicate. Because a lot of people don't know, don't understand. So, with this, I like to pray for those brothers and sisters who perished and those families now have the pains and sufferings. We in ICNA already established a fund for the victims. We are asking our community to go out and donate blood. We have volunteers now is coming out to Manhattan in different shelters to providing the food. And also we are going to supply food for the officers who are working in the World Trade Center in Shea Stadium. So we urge all Muslim community and non-Muslim community to come together, join each and every person who are working there to help the helpless. Now, I'm going to read the statement from Brother Kevin James. All there of us fire marshals from Brooklyn base rushed to work on the total recall when everybody who is off has to come in with the knowledge that both twin towers had collapsed. We hastily stuffed our fire gear into the truck, hoping to be able to help dig out anyone who was trapped. It later turned out to be a wishful thinking. As we sped to Manhattan on the deserted Gowanus Expressway, all of us spoke of the shock we felt over the developing events. When we crossed the bridge, it was as if we had entered another world. Blankets of white ash coated every surface as more particles rained from the sky. Ground Zero was a scene of total devastation, almost like something out of Planet of Apes or Independence Day. Emergency vehicles and parked cars may overturn from the force of the collapse were charred and smoldering. Because of the hazardous material structure conditions, we could do little more than that, tally up the missings. How could one human being do this to others? The expected loss of life among firefighters is estimated between 200 to 300 people. Many units with manpower from both the previous night shift and the incoming day crews raced through the upper floors of the towers searching for the victims. Without warning, each tower collapsed like an accordion. What hurt was the most was their aggressiveness and eagerness to save lives placed the crews too high in the building when the collapse came. Entire unit was suddenly unaccounted for. Fire Marshal Ron Buca, a veteran investigator from the Manhattan base, was among one of them. Last seen searching for people trapped on 50th floor, I could not but think that it had arrived at the scene just before the collapse. That could have been me. The chief fire marshal, in a move that probably saved his life, recounted how he had walked away from the command center beneath the bridge connecting the Twin Towers and World Financial Trade Center. Moments later, second collapse came lives of Deputy Fire Commissioner William, Chief of Department Peter, Father Michael Judge, one of the department chaplains. Several issues I have raised with the Deputy Commissioner and the Chief seem to be inconsequential now. It is now starting to soak in the horror of their families are going to feel. My God, I think again, how can people do this to other people? Cut in short, as a Muslim, carnage as more information comes in, pointing the fingers at madman Osama bin Laden. I empathize with the frustration and anger my fellow firefighters feel. In the name of Islam, bin Laden has done more damage to Muslims than any real imagined foe. I dread being stereotyped and malignant over the actions of one insane jailer. Still numb, I am trying to make sense of it all, to see the reason in the ruins, to grasp the ray of hope out of the ashes. Thank you very much.
Imam Talib Abdul Rashid will deliver a short statement and then we will proceed with short statements.
Peace be unto you all. Assalamu alaikum. For those of you from the press, actually the full text, copies of the full text of my statement are in the back, so I'm just going to refer to a couple of quick issues. What you see here this morning is really a representation of various levels of Muslim leadership from across the city. I'm also the deputy leader of a national organization and have been in touch with imams in different parts of the country. And all of us pretty much have the same concerns. At this time here in New York City, none of us have any way of knowing the identities of the victims, but we can all rest assured that when all of the victims are identified, that they will be of every racial group, every ethnic group, and of every religion. And in the weeks and the months ahead, we're all going to be reminded that we are members of a single family as we experience commonly grief and hope and anger and despair. We, the leadership of the Muslim community, we are, even as we're extending condolences on one hand, we are also counseling patience and restraint and tolerance on the other. Some time ago when Timothy McVeigh and his accomplices committed mass murder in Oklahoma City, I'm sure we all remember that the initial response was to blame the Muslims. And of course that turned out to be a false assumption or false response. Nonetheless, McVeigh, who was raised as a Roman Catholic, but when his identity was discovered, no one blamed the Catholic Church for Timothy McVeigh's sins. No one attacked Catholics. No one vilified a faith for the actions of a few. And this must be the case with Muslims and Islam. Over the past 2 days, we've been receiving reports of random attacks upon Muslims, Muslim men and women. Some of them have been beaten, as here in New York, a young Muslim woman was beaten on the campus of Cleveland State College in Ohio, and there have also been people stabbed and people shot. Detroit, Hartford, Connecticut, and again, Cleveland. So this is the type of thing that we all really going to have to guard against. And lastly, sure we're all familiar with there's an American poet who once wrote, "No man is an island, no man stands alone. Each man's joy is joy to me, each man's grief is my own." And we here in America, we have been for too long isolated from the grief of other peoples. There are a lot of people who are suffering throughout the world, and we here in America have been really, to too large a degree, uninterested in their suffering. We have not been sensitive to the effect of American foreign policy on simple people like ourselves, who have death and destruction rain down on them every day. And so this event really should help to sensitize our hearts in our grief. And as we all move to try to cope with this situation, I was just informed on my way in that a group of Muslim doctors from California have mobilized themselves, and they are literally on their way here now in order to volunteer their services. So we encourage all to seek divine help with patient perseverance and prayer, and to open our hearts mutually. And let us all pray for genuine reconciliation of human conflict through a pursuit of true justice for all people, guided by the principles that were held dear by the prophets whom we all revere. Thank you very much, and peace be unto you.
Thank you. At this point, I would like to ask Rabbi David Lincoln of Park Avenue Synagogue to come and speak, and we'll proceed after that.
I will be very brief, and excuse me for speaking a little bit about myself, and also excuse me if I have to run out, because there's a young man at the Pierre Hotel, member of my congregation, who is trying to deal with the families of 900 of his employees who have been murdered and slaughtered. And I came just now from visiting a young woman in my congregation whose husband is missing, and I spoke to the parents of the nursery school this morning to try and reassure them. So it's all a little bit overwhelming. I just want to tell you a couple of things about myself. When I was a young man in London, we lived through the Blitz. It's true I was only 2 years old when the war broke out for us in 1939, but I remember when I was 5 and 6 and 7, sitting in the shelter every night with my mother. My father was away in the Royal Navy, sitting with my sister. I spoke to my sister on the phone from England yesterday, and we both agreed that this is much worse than the Blitz. True, 65,000 people were killed in British cities, but nevertheless, we had some sort of sense of security. We knew we were at war. We had an alarm. The siren went. We sat under a shelter. I don't know whether it would have helped on a direct hit, it wouldn't have, but it didn't matter. We felt sort of safe. I knew that our father was fighting the Germans, so we felt we were doing something positive. But this random act and this massacre is beyond all human understanding. And I have to tell you also, and I'll conclude in a few seconds, I come from a family that greatly respects Islam. My father of blessed memory, that same father who fought the Germans in the Royal Navy, was a very prominent lawyer in England. He always insisted on employing Muslims in his chambers. He loved Pakistanis and Indian Muslims. He had a special respect for Islamic law. My youngest son lived in Yemen, loves the Arabic language, has friends from Ramallah and Nablus, is in London at the moment studying for a master's. That's the kind of background I come from, and of course I've always respected Islam, but I'm not sure now whether every scintilla of any love that I've ever had for Islam has not been shaken from me, not because of these wonderful people here who we do love and who are totally innocent and who we have to protect. That is true, but because of the dancing in the streets. Can somebody explain to me how Islam has taught people to dance in the streets and celebrate? I understand you've got to fight with Israel, you've got to fight with the United States, but to rejoice at mass slaughter, to say Mabruk, like they do in Cairo, and to offer candies to everybody and jump for joy, Will somebody please explain that to me so that I can have a renewed respect for Islam? I'm sorry to be so angry, but anger is really taking over, and I'm sort of walking around in a daze. I know a rabbi in England who came into Bergen-Belsen with the British liberating troops. He was not able to function. I don't want to be like that. I want to try and control my composure and to try and help my congregants who are bereaved and my fellow citizens who are bereaved. And when I go to see the families now of the 900, they're not Jewish. I mean, some may be, but the others are not. We're going to offer to Muslims, to Christians, to Jews, whatever comfort we can bring. Thank you.
Thank you. I invite Sister Aisha Al-Adawiya, who is the founder and director of Women in Islam.
Assalamu alaikum. We've been asked to read our statements, but I feel compelled to respond briefly to the Imam that indeed those who have respect for Islam and an understanding of Islam certainly realize and are very confident that Islam does not teach this kind of activity among its adherents. And again, we caution not to label Islam, but to look at the actions of individuals. And of course, it's our responsibility to reach out to anyone who is interested to know what is Islam, and it's our privilege to do so. The events of this week in New York, Washington, and Philadelphia have shocked us all beyond belief. As we attempt to deal with our own personal pain and deep sense of loss and violation, we are reminded of the unspeakable suffering of those who were caught in the midst of the devastation and survived, and those who did not. And as we reach out and open our hearts to their families and to each other, let us include those in near and faraway places who also endure unimaginable horror and crimes against humanity. We are one race. Scientists working in the field of genetics tell us that there are only 30 genes that separate us humans from mice. If this is true, then we are indeed more closely related than we ever imagined, all belonging to the same unique universe, indeed one family. We make no apology for being Muslim. On the contrary, it is our faith that makes us human. And Islam is not a foreign entity to these shores. Muslims have been here for centuries, and that is part of our history and our legacy that has to be told and taught to our citizenry. We call upon those in authority and media professionals to exercise sound judgment and professionalism as the investigation goes forward until we reach a just and unbiased decision. We are working closely with other communities and organizations to provide humanitarian assistance to the victims and their families. We are also offering our services to government and private agencies as required. We ask Allah to grant us wisdom as we seek truth and justice for the victims and their families, as we ask for protection from the infliction of harm or injustice upon us and our families. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm asking Dr. Fariz Khan to come and speak. He's a representative of Asma Society.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. The Quran joins the biblical tradition in proclaiming that whosoever kills a human life, it is as if they've slaughtered all of humanity. And whosoever saves a human life, it is as if they've saved all of humanity. There are no words. How much can words really convey? We pray that words from our heart reach out to the hearts of all who listen. As American Muslims, we stand aghast after the attack on our fellow American civilians. We offer our deepest sympathies to those who suffer. Many of those who suffer, as you've just heard, include our own families and our own friends, since we too are part of the great landscape that is America, and we too therefore are aggrieved. As American Muslims, we offer unconditional love and aid to the recent victims of violence and acute oppression. We support any effort to accurately identify and mete out punishment to those responsible for this despicable act. There is no authentic way of life which is based on submitting to peace and divinity that allows indiscriminate slaughter. This behavior is pathetic, it's evil, and it's condemned. This has nothing to do with religion. This has nothing to do with Islam. This has everything to do with politics and the endless cycle of violence that plagues humanity since the dawn of history. The spiritual luminaries in our tradition have counseled us to defend and help the victim and bring to justice the victimizer, no matter to what label or group either one belongs. One will find we American Muslims rising to the call and striving in many forms, naturally commensurate with that of our fellow New Yorkers and fellow Americans, because we are in this together. Many American Muslims are helping individually. Some have organized into groups to help in any way possible, be it through human labor or donations, financial aid, what have you. Others are already woven into the fabric of other relief organizations and professions. I myself happen to be an emergency doctor who's on faculty at a New York City hospital. I've been treating and will continue to treat many of the victims to the best of my talent. As a matter of fact, I'm leaving after this meeting to Chelsea Pier. I must mention to any individuals or groups who are inclined to bias and indiscriminate acts against Muslims here or abroad, we ask them, just as our public officials ask them, to please stop and search their conscience and realize that by acting out, they become students and mimickers of the very same people who are responsible for the catastrophe. Those people then become their guides and teachers. We are called upon by our tradition to struggle in allowing justice, love, peace, and selflessness to dominate our intentions and efforts. That is one of the primary thrusts of Islam. And we are here simply to let you know that we are hand in hand with all of America. It's our duty as Americans and human beings. When it comes to the exalted principles of this nation, we are not other than. We are part of. That should be made very clear. And just, I feel again compelled to respond to the rabbi. Celebration of people who are ignorant of the atrocities of war is common through all civilizations and all of history. We had people marketing the whole Gulf War with t-shirts and celebrations where hundreds and thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of people were killed, innocent civilians. But people that were ignorant of this, they celebrate. And that's common to all nations and all civilizations all throughout history. So this should not be singled out as reflecting the Islamic faith. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to call Mr. Mar Oka, a representative of the Muslim American Society.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. I'll be very brief. In the name of the Muslim American Society in New York, as we have done that all over the United States, we strongly condemn the horrific terrorist act on civilians in New York and Washington. We offer our deep condolences and sorrow to the families who lost their loved ones. And I'd like to say something here, that we're hurt twice. We're hurt by losing our fellow Americans and friends that we have there in the World Trade Center, and we are hurt again as being prejudged and harassed our children, our women out there in the street just because we're Muslims. And I'd like finally to emphasize the statement of the President of the United States that there are millions of Muslims, few million Muslims, and there are thousands of Arab Americans who are willing to sacrifice their lives and their blood for this country and for the flag of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to invite Mr. Kevin James. Kevin James is late. He is the head of Islamic Society of Fire Department personnel, but he's also a representative of the Council on American Islamic Relations in New York City.
Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of the Council on American Islamic Relations, I would like to join everyone else in condemning the terrorist attacks in New York and Washington, and we offer our condolences to the families of those who were killed and injured. These vicious, cowardly acts of terrorism against innocent civilians should not and cannot be condoned or justified in any sense. We join with all Americans in calling for the swift apprehension and punishment of the perpetrators. No political cause can ever be assisted by such immoral and cowardly acts. I would just like to speak also off the cuff that, I mean, who are the Muslims that people should go after? Who are the Muslims in this country? I mean, there's a documented presence of Muslims in this nation since the 1500s, whether they came from West Africa as explorers or they came as slaves. There's a documented presence in this country. Americans just like everyone else. Whether we came to this country 6 months ago, or if we have a family that's been here 200 or 300 years. We have Hispanic, African American, Indonesian, Latino, Native American. So we as Muslims are an integral part of this fabric, of this glorious mosaic of American culture. So please do not hold us responsible for the acts of some people who twist a religion to their own warped sense of political reality. And again, I condemn, and CARE condemns, the actions of these individuals. Please do not hold the Muslim community responsible for their actions. We offer our condolences to those who are suffering. I mean, anyone who's been to the scene of the World Trade Center knows how horrible and how terrible an act. How can one human being or a few human beings do this to so many, cause so much damage, and destroy so many lives? So the only good thing that I hope can come out of this is that we can connect, all the different faith communities can connect with each other's humanity and put an end and stop the rhetoric and put an end to this violence, this endlessly escalating cycle of violence. Thank you.
Good afternoon. At 1 o'clock, we're going to be testing the fire equipment. In light of what happened at the World Trade Center, we just want to check all the alarms and the lights. Repeat, we're going to check the fire equipment at 1 o'clock.
That means you're just going to hear a buzzer.
Before the test of the fire system, Monsignor Thomas Leonard will make a statement. He has to leave very briefly.
I apologize for going out of turn. We are a Red Cross drop-off center at 82nd Street. I have 80 volunteers there. We've been working for the last couple of days. Interesting, as we left this morning, there were 2 young men from Afghanistan who were working with the crowd. So I think that we can say that we are not condemning in that wide sense. The basis of all society, of course, is justice. And we are hoping that justice is done in this sense. And if, for those who are worried, if you recall the World Trade Center, it took time and to identify and it took time to bring to justice the few who were ultimately responsible. And so I think we can count on the government to do that. Obviously, our first thought is revenge and fear, but that's not Christian. Christianity says to us, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. Obviously, that faith is tested in this particular moment. And so we share with all of the rest of you the sense of loss. Anybody in the city has somebody. We have a number in our own parish who are involved and who are missing, waiting for that voice to be heard on the phone that's not coming. And so we join with all others in compassion to suffer with and to share with those. Paul said to the Ephesians, we can't be bitter, to wear bitterness, the outrage of passion, anger, insulting language. And the psalmist says to us, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and those who are crushed in spirit, he saves. And I think that from a religious point of view, the only thing I would hope that the imams that are here would recognize that we need more moderation. The strident voices that are heard around the world are not one. You recall Yeats's poem, the things fall apart, the center will not hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world, the blood-dibbed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passion, intensity. I think a day of revelation is upon us, he says. And so we who have been, perhaps have not had the passion within us that we need, ought to bring that to the fore with justice, with love, with an understanding of the brotherhood that makes us all one in the Lord. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to call Mr. Muhammad Shamsi Ali. He's a representative of the Indonesian community in New York City.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much indeed. I represent also the Muslim Foundation of America here in New York City. When you think about a Muslim, actually, indeed Indonesia represents the largest Muslim country in the world. So I would like to assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that the more than 2,100,000 Muslims in Indonesia with the American people in this terrific and terrible act of terrorist. We condemn and deplore in the strongest possible way this cowardly and senseless act of terrorism that occurred in this country 2 days ago. The Indonesian people's hearts, thoughts and prayers go to the families who have lost loved ones in that terrible and painful day. We deplore such inhuman and immoral acts of violence, and we fully support all efforts to track down the individuals responsible for these atrocities and bring them to justice. I would like also to thank the government of the United States, who can still see the difference between the acts of terrorists and the teachings of religion. And I'd like to quote Mr. Colin Powell yesterday when someone asked him, is this really done by the fundamentalist Muslims? He says it's nothing to do with Islamic. This is a terrorist. This is a terrorist thing. And I would like again to quote Mr. Giuliani, who said that nothing to do with religious and ethnic backgrounds. This is a terrorist act, and all of us condemn these terrorist acts, ladies and gentlemen. At last, let me underline that America has been enriched by the diversity of its people. And I do believe that this will continue forever. Do not this terrorist act divide us, ladies and gentlemen. I would like also to urge the Muslim communities to pray for the families who lost one. Tomorrow we have Friday congregation. I would like to urge all the Muslims to pray for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a couple of statements left from the Muslim representatives, and then we will continue with representatives of other religions in New York City. I welcome Mr. Ahmed Al-Khatib, who is the representative of the Arab American Coalition and the National Muslim Merchants Association.
Assalamu alaikum. This is a sad time for our country and our people, our nation. We sadden not only because Arabs and Muslims work in the World Trade Center and some of them are missing. We sadden because our children, our men, have been massacred by this barbaric act, by cowardly act. Terrorism has no faith, no ethnicity, and no religion. They come from all over the world with different backgrounds and different fanatics to come and commit this horrific act. This barbaric act had effect on all our lives. This is a time for us to heal and pull together and build our community and stand strong in front of these terrorists. We should not let them win our heart and divide us. And I urge the media very strongly with their comments regarding the Arabs and the Muslims and condemning the Arabs and Muslims. That will bring divisions into our communities. We need to pull together and fight this together and stand as one unity, one nation, as Americans. And thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite our last Muslim representative, Imam Suleimani Kunati, who is the chairman of the Association of African Imams in New York, and he's also the Imam, the head of Masjid Aqsa on 116th Street.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On behalf of my brothers, African Imams in New York City, Alhamdulillah, we're here to tell you that inshallah we condemn this terrorist act, because before we do, I'm gonna just remind you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran and His messengers, they condemn this kind of act in our society, because Islam is to protect human being. Islam is to guide humanity. So, and that's why every aspect, every one of our actions and behaviors in home life and outside as Muslims must be recorded and preserved, because we must be example, and that's what we try to do here in the United States and New York too, because we try to teach our kids how to be a good citizenship, good citizen of the United States, how to be a good Muslim, how to respect people. So it's sad that in Harlem, when we see people coming to us and blame us that we did this kind of act, I'm kind of ask myself, since as African we've been in this country, we don't even speak the language. We have problem to communicate with people, but what we do is to work hard and make a living and live in peace. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, we condemn this act in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring the justice in this case, because the terrorism doesn't have anything to do with Islam, like my other Imam says, and that's the truth. Islam is gonna teach people the discipline, respect, and everybody knows that, because when you read the Quran, you know what Islam is about. So we feel sorry for the victims and their families. And myself here, I lost my cousin, because he used to work out there and he didn't come home yet. There was a restaurant in there, 103rd floor. So we didn't see him yet. And we don't know how we're gonna face his wife and his kids. So because they're right now crying. And we know we ain't gonna find them anymore. So how I'm gonna kill my own people and other people? So we feel sorry for them. Our salat, our dua, inshallah, goes to them. And tomorrow is Jummah. We will make it possible to make salat janaza for this all shuhada martyr, inshallah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I would like to welcome Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, who's and the incoming president of New York City Board of Rabbis and the chaplain of New York City Fire Department.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Shalom Aleichem. Salam Aleichem. Namaskar, that's limitation of my knowledge of various languages. I want to say to all of you that I learned at a young age that in this world there are just two kinds of people, the decent and the indecent. So all of us come here today from different denominations as members of the decent who will stand up against the indecent. We're going to hear many questions asked in the next few days and weeks, but I think people are looking to all of us for simply one answer. And the answer they want to hear from all of us is that we stand together and we say no to the horror and to the hatred. So yes, we are many voices, but we also come here with one voice. Our religious traditions tell all of us that after a tragedy, religious leaders need to ask themselves this question: have we done everything humanly possible to stop the hatred that has occurred? We have a search and rescue mission in the fire department. Let me tell you, as we are here, they are working so assiduously to search, to rescue. But we also have to have a search and rescue team. We have to search our hearts. We have to search our communities so that we can rescue others from future hatred. Now, this tragedy occurred on September the 11th, so you would mark that as 9/11. 9/11 is also how you make an emergency call. So I would like to make this recommendation, that we not wait till there's a 9/11, till there's an emergency, for different peoples to come together. We can have meetings when there's 8/11 and 7/11. We should be doing this on an everyday basis. And let me say to all here, we know that when we sit down together, we are not going to see eye to eye. We know that. But one thing we have to show our young people today, and all other people, is that at least religious people can sit down heart to heart. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to welcome Mr. Andy Stetner, who is the Executive Director of Jews for Racial and Economic Justice.
I just wanted to add a few words to commend particularly the Muslim leaders who have taken the statement and are helping to try to mend the city, to create peace in the city. And I want to offer our organization's resources, and hopefully many more in the Jewish community, that will, in these days, when there will be so many feelings of anger and hatred, we've all heard today here, that we should not jump from some pictures we see in the TV from a region of the world with so much pain to what has happened here in our city. And it will be incumbent upon all of us. We will talk to hundreds of people, each of us, in the coming days, to say we'll do everything we can to protect ourselves from the kind of hatred people will feel in their hearts, and the ways that people have already acted on it, and the ways that in our city's growing Muslim and Arab American communities, people may act on it in the coming days. So as we mourn, as we are in so much sorrow for so many lives that have been lost, for this rip in the world, let's try to take this moment to break the cycle of violence that caused this. And I am eager to work with everyone here and those across the city to help that happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to invite Father Bert Briner. He's the chaplain at Grace Church School.
This morning I was preparing for a special chapel service at Grace Church School and asking myself how you explain to children from preschool through grade 8 the meaning of this senseless tragedy. I thought about it for a while and finally realized you don't explain the meaning of such a senseless tragedy to anyone of any age. It's not possible. But one thing I've learned working with children is stories sometimes help to make a point. I didn't use this one this morning, but I would like to share one story with you. When I was a child, I was interested in languages. I was a good, devout Christian boy all of my life, but I wanted to learn Hebrew and asked my Jewish friends how you learn Hebrew. And they said, it's easy, you go to Hebrew school. So I went to the rabbi, who told me that I needed my parents' permission since I wasn't Jewish. I think he thought he had gotten rid of me at that point. But I showed up next week with a letter from my parents and started going to Hebrew school. A nice conservative shul. I was only 11 years old. I had this very childish thing that I had to do better than all my Jewish friends. So one day, on my way to synagogue, a quarter of a block away, had the yarmulke on, Jewish prayer book open in front of me, feverishly memorizing the brachas for the day. And two older teenagers came up, and one grabbed me from behind, the other started punching me in the stomach and calling me a dirty Jew and a Christ killer and a bunch of other words that I won't share with you now, but you can fill them in. Well, I don't know if you've ever had anyone hold you up while someone else was punching you in the stomach, but it's very difficult to talk. I wanted to say, you've got it all wrong. I'm a good Christian kid. I go to Mass at least 3 times a week, which was true. But they probably wouldn't have believed me anyway. Yarmulke on, quarter of a block from the synagogue, Jewish prayer book. It would have been worse. And when I got to the synagogue, once they ascertained I was in pain, but all right, they said, well, that's what happens. It happens to us all the time. This story goes in several directions, but I'm not going to take you in all of them. But I'll tell you one thing that I did learn from it. When they called me a Christ killer, I realized that that was something they had learned from my own religion. That was something that Christians have said about Jews. And now I was being beaten up for it. The moral of the story is simply this. We can and must get together to talk to each other before another 9/11. We need to do that. We need to work together. But there's something even more important we need to do. We need to go home to our own communities and watch how we talk at home about the other. Because so many of the attitudes that our Muslim brothers and sisters, our Jewish brothers and sisters, and ourselves encounter on the street don't come from what we say when we sit down politely with each other. They come from what we say when we're home alone in our own churches and synagogues with our own kind. We have to go home. We have to clean up our act. We have to watch what we say about every other American and every other human being. And we must never allow ourselves to be caught saying something which tars with an all too wide brush any other kind of religious faith or ethnic group. And at home, we must learn to watch our tongue, or we will not change our society.
Our heart goes out to all those who lost their lives and all the families of the bereaved, not just in New York, but all over. This is a tragedy which is beyond description of words. Everyone before me have expressed their sentiments in so many different ways. But it is so clear. It is just like so many rivers flowing into the same ocean. All of us are expressing in different words under the banner of a different faith, but yet asking for peace in this world. We pray the same Lord day in and day out, that we will hope that never to see such a massive tragedy again in our lifetime, and our generations to come must never see either. I don't think the night of 10th, when all of us slept, we ever dreamed that what we would see early morning of the 11th. It's almost as a massacre of a magnitude that is beyond description. Any faith will only say peace. No faith will say kill others. It is the interpretation of the faith, interpretation of the understanding that brings on this hatred. This is no time for hatred. This is the time to get together. This is the time for all of us belonging to different faiths to understand each other. We must love each other as brothers and sisters do. The more you understand, the more you respect, then less there is hatred. No matter who commits such barbaric acts of terrorism, he or she should be condemned. Condemned because of having taken such enormous number of innocent lives, children, women. We have expressed this not just in America, but anywhere in the globe, and rightfully so. The entire world is standing by the United States. The United States has exhibited its exemplary actions by lending hand to places where there have been massive destruction by natural disasters, earthquakes, floods, and we owe it to them. We're all citizens of this globe. We're all citizens of one common race, that is the human race. So, my dear brothers and sisters, we all rise up to occasions when tragedy hits, but that's not enough. We must maintain that momentum, and we must maintain our continuous coordination and understanding so that we all come together much more often, understand, and begin to have that deep love for each other. And I pray the Lord that He gives all of us this sense and His grace and the enormous peace that each of us is looking for. As somebody just now said, search yourself first. Search your own conscience first. And if you search your conscience and if you are satisfied with what you do, that means you have accomplished. That self-realization, which is ultimately the goal of just about every faith, I think is what we're all looking for. So I plead once again to all of you here and many who may not be here, that we all should be together and then overcome this tragedy. And I'm sure every time there is a tragedy of this magnitude, it only makes us stronger, and then we will rise much higher. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to call Reverend T.K. Nakagaki, the President of New York Buddhist Council.
First of all, on behalf of the Buddhist Council of New York and all the Buddhist community of New York, and also I'm part of the Japanese Buddhist community too, so on behalf of those, I would like to first of all express my deepest sympathy and condolences to the family, relatives, or friends of the one who were victimized by the terrorist acts. Actually, I was thinking, well, I wrote something, but I guess I decided not to say what I wrote. And but instead, I would like to share some of my thoughts. But before that, I'm talking from the Buddhist community, we actually really talk about, Buddhist community is still very small in New York City, but then actually today we decided to do something for the victims too, and which is, hopefully this will happen. But in a Buddhist tradition, we have 49th day memorial service, which is considered as a very important day. It's really, that will be October 29th on Monday, so that's a 49th day after those attack. And so hopefully all the Buddhists in New York, or maybe of the United States or other country, gather at the location of the World Trade Center. Possibly 1 month from now, hopefully we can be there, or nearby there, and have the Buddhist interfaith memorial service. That's the very important, significant time for us. And hope, thinking again is about 6 o'clock probably after the work on Monday, the October 29th. So I hope some of you or many of you can join us that. And please listen to that notice. And now, from the Buddhist perspective, one thing that I really have to say, probably from the tradition of Buddhism towards the war, I believe Buddhism is one of the religions who never really raised the war, especially, and then the no violence is the basic attitude to the towards the anything. And I believe when you look at the history of the Buddhism, really limited war involvement. And I believe one of the reasons that we could do that is how we control our anger. And in a statement of the Dhammapada, which by the Buddha, it says, in this world, the hatred has never yet dispelled hatred. It is the absence of hatred that leads us to peace. And this law is ancient and will last forever. And I actually would like you to really meditate on this passage. And then from the Tibetan, I think some of you got the notes from the Dalai Lama's statement and to the letter to the President Bush and so forth. And then the part of the statement, there is including the hatred. Really, instead of solving the problem, hatred increase more hatred. And then the other hate each other, then it just, agitation is the one that we really hate to see. And also I'm part of the, as you can see, Japanese. And now I feel like a lot of part of the Pearl Harbor things coming up again. And then that reminds me also the Japanese American who are prisons by the hatred, just only because of the Japanese scheme. I mean, most of them, nothing to do with how the Japan started the war and so forth. Just they thought they're citizens of the United States and they help, as much as they can. And then now, all of a sudden, everybody changed the attitude, and then which is really sad to see. And I hope this thing shouldn't happen to the other community. So I would like to just share these thoughts at this point from the Japanese American parts. And lastly, I would like to mention the beauty of the interfaith is for me, it's like creating the one great orchestra, because I thought New York is one of the best things of the music and everything. And so I thought those are nice parts of the, the religious gathering too. Each one is different, right? In an orchestra, one plays violin, and then the other plays trumpet, and then the other play pianos and so forth. And then, but when they combine together, they create a great harmony. But then, in order to do that, one thing you can't say is, "Oh, violin is the best." Not, everything is, no good. But right, and then piano starts saying, "No, piano is the best." And then you just, fighting each other, which is the best. But that's not the best thing that we want to do. We want to be the best as we are. So it means piano become really the piano. So the best sound of the piano they can create, and then violin can best create the best sound of violin, and yet they create those harmony. In order to do that, they really need to respect each other, and then also develop the mutual understanding. Then you probably be able to create such harmony among all of the revisions. And then this is the very important time, I believe, that we can help each other and then try to, I think, basically it's a very important part of the helping each other with our own understanding, mutual understanding. And so I hope we can create, again, back to the wonderful music as we work together. And that's what I'd like to share with you for today. Thank you.
I would like to invite Mr. Dastur Pervez Patel. I apologize if I mispronounce anything. He's the representative of the Zoroastrian Association of Greater New York.
On behalf of all the Zoroastrians living all around the world and the Zoroastrian Associations of North America, commonly known as Fazana, I bring to the victims of this great tragedy a profound sense of grief and sorrow. All religions teach good values of life. They all teach to be good, to love, to understand each other. And the need of the hour is extreme sense of tolerance. By and large, people are good people. They outnumber the bad people. And our young doctor friend said it best when he said, terror is no religion. They can come from any walk of life. And the act of such few bad apples should not be construed as a norm. It's an exception. It happens in all the societies. What we need is tolerance and understanding and love for one another. My religion, like all your religions and other religions, teach good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. If you take care of these three things, our life will be fulfilled, and the mission for which Lord has put us on this earth would be fulfilled. A lot has been said by speakers before me, and there are other clergy people who are standing here waiting for their turn. So I would end this with a very brief prayer. Yenge hatam atyesne baiti vangaho masdao vahuro veta ashatacha yaungam cha tascha taoscha yazamaide Ashone Hashem Wohu Vaishtem Asti Ushta Asti Ushta Amai Yatashai Vahishtai Hashem. Let there be peace on earth. God bless you.
Thank you. I would like to call Myoti Sunim, representative of the Korean Buddhist Organization of America.
Hello. Well, actually, I don't have many things to say because you're the great religious leaders talked everything already. September 11, I have two meetings. One is Buddhist counseling meeting and one another thing. In the morning, I'm trying to prepare this meeting, but someone, my sangha, working in the Manhattan and called me, oh, Sunim, you should not come Manhattan. I said, why? Now it's just like a word in the twin building is. So I turned to TV and I saw unbelievable things, and that moment I just everything stopped. And then I said to myself, this kind of situation, this moment, what am I supposed to do? I'm the Buddhist nun and Zen monk and monk. What can I do? That moment, everything is blank, and I said few minutes, and then I turned to my room, and when we do some chanting and things, we wear this ceremony, and I put on my robe and went downstairs and start chanting. When Buddhism, people died, we have a mantra, Jijangbo-sal, Jijangbo-sal, Jijang. This for only dead people. I start chanting, and many my sangha come. You know, they everybody scare face and come, and we did the chanting. Actually, that's all I can do because I don't have a skill for save people, or I'm not doctor. I'm the Zen nun, and only pray for people. Why?
Why? Actually, everybody, United States poor, Muslim poor, India poor. No, it's not true. Non-United States poor, non-Muslims poor. No, each of us poor. Your poor, my poor. This is not. Each human have somebody say, our poor. In Catholic, I'm Buddhist, but I know my poor. Because I've been attend the Catholic school and I was chorus in Catholic. I know sing more than Buddhist sing than Catholic sing because beautiful, touched. So, not Muslim, we must wake up. Not Muslim poor, not Buddhist poor, not India poor, no. Each of us poor. We must wake up, we must pray. Pray, only don't have to be Buddhist way, Muslim way, or Catholic way, Buddhist way. Because everybody have a different background, different karma, different shape. Or how come only have to be Buddhist way? Eh? I love Martin because I said wisdom man because look at this place. I'm trying to open this kind of place. I don't have a power. I don't have money. I don't have, but someone stand up. I said, Matt, I'm the one of your father Martin's supporter. Anything I'll help. So what happened is, let's be cool down. Don't blame Richard. Don't blame the United States, Richard. Don't blame the Muslim. No. Each of us, mind has to be clear. Mind has to be clean. Because I'm Buddhist, so I have to speak Buddhist. Buddhist state, minds create everything. How true? How true? Truth has no word. No like, dislike, no black, no white, no nothing. Truth, sky is blue, water is floating. Truth don't have a word. But this smart human being create mind, word and black and white, yellow, you are Chinese, your nose is low, well, we sitting here, what we supposed to do? The Japanese monk said, in orchestra, I'm talking about we whole world is a single flower. You can look at your garden. I don't have a garden because I live a very bad situation. I wish I went to Syria. Please leave some trees. Trees and nature make people mind harmony. I mean, softer and I don't know name of what, but the whole world is a single flower. You look at the garden and went out in the morning. Rose don't say, trip, hey, you don't look like me. How come you standing beside me? Right? Rose has to be rose. Tulip has to be 100%. I'm standing here Buddhist, 100% Buddhist. No, that's all. That's all. Right now, I'm speaking. You listen. That's the truth. If you have perceived this, in whole world it will become a peace. Please, don't blame nobody. Don't blame Muslim. Don't blame United States. Don't blame Korean. Don't blame whatever. Let's be pray and clean our mind and put down everything and moment to moment help people. Thirsty people come, give to water. Sick people, hungry people come, give to food. That's all, okay? I have a limited time. Let's be together and thank you for this interface people to have this kind of event and we share each other, but go back to, we try each of us, the way you are. Low, high, we don't have that. So everybody let's pray with these dead souls and everybody pray the victim, doesn't matter, okay? That's what I would like saying and I'm gonna do more hard to pray and become liberate myself So join us every moment of this sad situation, okay? And then let's pray and let's recap. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to invite Mr. Nawang Rabgyal, who is the representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Good afternoon, dear friends. First of all, on behalf of His Holiness Dalai Lama and Tibetan people, I would like to convey our deep condolence and solidarity with the people of the United States at this moment of tremendous sorrow and tragedy. Our deepest sympathies and condolence with the members of the family, relatives, and friends of the victims of this unthinkable and tragic event in this great country. His Holiness Dalai Lama has sent condolence letter to President Bush as well as the Mayor of New York, expressing his shock, sadness, condolence, and solidarity with people of this great country. A copy of the letter, if you are interested, you will find from the reception table. As a symbolic gesture of our solidarity with the people of New York City, His Holiness has donated $30,000 towards the relief work, and I plan on delivering this check to the mayor very soon. This inhuman act of terrorism is an attack not only against the United Nations, but an attack against the freedom of movement and entire civilized world. So we all must join the international community to condemn this senseless and evil act of terrorism in the strongest term possible. We support and express our solidarity and unity to defend solidarity and freedom, justice, and peace in this world. So now what is important to keep our mind at this critical juncture is to keep the teaching of the Mahatma Gandhi in our daily life, and especially at this moment of sorrow and tragedy. Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the Indian nation, as well as champion of the world peace and non-violence, taught us not to hate the sinner, but the sin. Hatred breeds hatred, and love breeds love. So we must keep his teaching in our mind at this critical juncture. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I would like to call Mr. Amrinder Munji Maharaj, representative of the Jain community.
On behalf of Jain community in all over the world, about 10 million Jain people, they are followers of non-violence. We lost our thousands brothers, sisters, and children. We have very deep grief because of devil activities. Human can't do anything. We are all brothers because of this earth. Earth is nursing everyone, giving food, water, fruit. So we are one. We are not Christian, Muslim, Sikh, Jain, or both. First, we are human. Human can't do these terrible things. Jain, they have faith if we are hurting anyone through the thoughts, speech, or action, we are doing violence. We have to protect all living beings If our heart is big, all world is our family. We have to teach our younger generation peace, non-violence, and love. They can, if we are killing someone, if someone is killing other one, that is not solution. We have to show lot of love. This America is very big country, very powerful country. We have to give love. British, they were ruling in the India. Mahatma Gandhi gave lot of love. Because of love, we win India. So love is solution. Through the love, we can change everything. Now our future is non-violence, love, and peace. And lot of Jain people, they were feeling very sorry. Anything is happened. Morning time, lot of children, parents, they went. Evening time, children were waiting, parents were waiting to children. They never meet. This was very sad message for everyone. We have to pray, we have to meditate for a peace. Because if we can pray and show love, then all this vibration will change everything. If we can think to do other different things, that is not solution. Lord Mahavira had told, without each other help, we can't survive. If you want, this world can survive, so we have to help each other. Appa so paramappa, your soul is God. If you are insulting or abusing anyone, you are not abusing anyone or yourself, you are abusing God, you are insulting God. First you are harming yourself, because anger, ego is giving lot of poison. If you are angry 15 minutes, you are losing 6 months energy. Then you have to reproduce, to work 6 months. Love is very good weapon, and non-violence and peace. This is a very great mantra and meditation for all. We are praying for our brothers, sisters, our family, and we have very deep grief. Sunday in Blairstone, there is our ashram Siddhachalam. We are going to pray there. We are calling all faiths there. That is 120-acre land. We are praying and feeling very sorry. And government is thinking positive way. That is very great things. Because we have no any difference. There was earthquake in India, American government helped a lot there. And his body is helping, and we are family. Again, we have to pray for a peace. Om Shanti.
Thank you. I would like to invite Mr. Prabhyot Singh. He's a representative of New York City's Sikh community.
The Creator is one, obtained by the grace of the true Guru. I'd like to reiterate the thoughts and sentiments of everyone here today when I say the Sikh community in New York, as well as throughout North America, strongly condemns these heinous acts of violence and terrorism against the people of America and the United States. The thoughts and prayers of the Sikh community are with the victims and their families here in New York and throughout really the world. Gurdwaras, which are Sikh places of devotion and learning, will be holding a special prayer session this Sunday in memory of those victims. And we would like to encourage those of all other faiths to do the same at your respective prayer ceremonies. The youth in New York, actually the Sikh youth in New York, are currently organizing a candlelight vigil for Saturday. And I think it would be a great show of support for the victims and solidarity for all our collective communities if everyone else helped organize that and brought your respective communities there. I'd like to just shift topics just for a second and say, Sikhs who number approximately 500,000 here in America are in a slippery situation every once in a while. Sometimes we're confused as a Hindu sect. We're facing genocide in India for our religious beliefs. And because of the photos of Osama bin Laden that have been very recklessly shown throughout all media stations, Sikhs, because we have beards and turbans and perhaps most closely resemble the photos that are being shown, are in grievous danger, both physical and emotional. Sikhs have been assaulted here in the New York area over the last 2 days. There's a gentleman who's at Jamaica Hospital who was beaten with a baseball bat right outside a Gurdwara in Richmond Hill. There were 2 young Sikhs that were shot with paintball guns outside a Gurdwara here in Richmond Hill, New York. A Sikh Gurdwara in Cleveland, Ohio was almost set ablaze last night. Thankfully, that was averted. But I'm sure you can all empathize when I say that Sikhs, because of our distinctive appearance, are going to be a target of those that are looking for a venue to vent grief and who are displaying ignorance. So I'd like, and the Sikh community would like for all of us to perhaps band together and contact the media collectively and also police officials, not just for Sikhs. Hatred against anyone at this time is a horrible, horrible thing. Hatred begets hatred. Innocent victims have been killed, thousands and thousands over this past week. And for people to start attacking innocent Arabs, innocent Muslims, innocent Sikhs, anyone that has a turban or a beard is totally inappropriate and unacceptable. If we can take that message back to our communities, I think it will be a great win for us. If the other communities that are present here can also help us contact police officials. There was a Sikh that was arrested yesterday in Providence, Rhode Island, off of an Amtrak train. It made national headlines. I'm sure every single person in this room knows about it. And the reason he was arrested? Because he was Sikh. This sort of racial profiling is utterly unacceptable. And we need to band together as religious communities, as people of conscience, and let everyone know that such misappropriations of justice are inappropriate. Finally, I'd just like to say this is a time in the wake of this tragedy that we can all really come together. And it's been repeated several times today that we need to band together, and we should not be waiting for a time like this to come together. The Interfaith Center of New York has been extremely proactive in doing this, getting different communities together. And we definitely need to do more programs often. Finally, again, if we can go back to our communities and say, not everyone that wears a turban is a terrorist. I think that we need to put that in the minds of people because it's being missed. I have detailed incident reports with me, if anyone's interested, as well as a press release from the New York Sikh community that I'd be happy to share with anyone. And in times like this, I'm reminded of a verse from our scriptural writings that says, "Hear all, for I proclaim the truth. Those that love will find God." I think the sentiment in that is universal, and let us all work towards unity. Thank you so much.
I would like to invite Baba Alosha Antonio Cabrera Mandizir. He's a priest in the Yoruba Lukumi tradition.
I give greetings to all of you, all of us as human families with good hearts and clean hands. I concur with the feelings of everybody here. My religious tradition from Africa, the Yoruba ethnic group, that religious tradition preserved in Cuba. I'm inspired by the teachings of our ancestors who found themselves enslaved. And learning from that atrocity of slavery in Cuba, I've written 6 questions down that I'd like us to ponder on with relationship to this heinous event. If we may contemplate on these, write down answers to them, because it's universal and it has application to the world we need to build. The first question is, Olodumare is God in our language. Why did Olodumare, why did God Almighty allow this to happen? That's question number 1. Question number 2, what lessons is Olodumare, what lessons is God Almighty forcing us to learn? Question number 3, what kind of seeds were sown for us to reap such a harvest? Number 4, what goodness can come from this? Number 5, how can we turn this tragedy and loss into happiness and gain? In our tradition, we learn through trial and error and through our scriptures how to turn osobo, or the path of bad choices, into onire, the path of goodness. That's ahead of us. And number 6, are we using the power of the spoken word to its best capacity to invoke all that we want as human beings? To invoke goodness, peace, and harmony through our incantations, through our words and prayers, through the written word, through web pages, through the internet. Are we doing enough with the spoken word? So we have work to do. I ask us as a human community to let's work together. Ashe.
I would like to invite Nana Osei Boake Yidong, Chief Queen Mother, representative of the Ghanaian community in New York. Thank
you. In my community, we have different religions. We have Muslims, we have Christians, we have Buddhists, to name a few. But we all work together and we all call ourselves Ghanaians. In this tragedy, we have doctors, we have nurses, and they are all working hard to help, because that's what we do in a situation like this in our country. If there is a tragedy, everybody comes. It doesn't matter whether you are on speaking terms with the person or not. We all come together to help. I have been to many African countries because I work with refugee women and children, and I have seen tragedy. I've been everywhere: Somalia, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and I've worked with Mozambican refugees, Rwandese refugees, all over. I was in Somalia and I saw the destruction of strong, heavy buildings which had been destroyed, and I had to put my hands on my head. I went straight from Somalia to OAU to see Salim. I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would see what I saw on the 11th of September. I saw it on the radio and TV, but then I could see the two buildings outside. So I went outside, and right in front of me, the first one came down. And then the second one, and I said to myself, New York of all places. There was war in Somalia that could be understood, but here, what has happened? And from there, I thought of the human situation. This tragedy has created abrupt widows. I mean, that's what I experienced in the refugee camp. I know what it is. And the planes, people's husbands, wives, parents, children had died just like that. And then we think of orphans, children who have lost a parent or parents. I mean, this is the tragedy. This is what we have to do. And this thing stays with you for the rest of your life. I mean, everywhere you go, you are going to experience this. For me, every time I hear of a plane crash, things come into my mind. Because my husband died, and he was a UN official, died in the course of duty for peace. And I know how it feels. This is what we have to think of. And justice should be done. But then, I'm appealing to everyone to see that there should be no war. Women, we bear the children. We know how it is. And in most cases, most of these our children, the ordinary person's child is going to go to war. I think you have to understand that. And he is going to be killed. I tell you that no amount of money will compensate for the feeling you have when you have lost a dear one. So let's all get together and see what we can do to bring justice to the people who created this kind of thing. But then to also have peace so that we won't have war. Because nobody gains during war. Nobody wins. And we want a safe haven for our children, for the future. And we also live here. We live on this planet. So we want peace and protection in a place like this. I thought we have all these things in Africa, but I never thought I would have this here in the US. But there we are. But it is God who created all of us. We are all members of the human race. And we all at this stage, this is the crisis. We have to come together. Muslims, Buddhists, everybody. No one should be terrorize someone because the person is from a different religion. We all have to come together to pray to God to have peace, to have a peaceful settlement. That's what I'm appealing, especially with you women who are here. Of course, with the men too. For the sake of our children, we must have peace. Thank you.
Before we close, and we will close with a statement from our president, the very Reverend James Sparks Morton. Before we close, we have one short announcement from one of many organizations that are helping now. Please come.
Assalamu alaikum. We can't change the past, but we can impact the future. Muslim Charity Networks is a web-based non-profit charity portal that employs the internet to facilitate online donations to various humanitarian causes that aid Muslims and non-Muslims around the world. In response to these attacks, Muslim Charity Networks has established a September 11th emergency relief fund. Your contribution will be used to mobilize resources to respond to the urgent needs of victims, and you have the choice of contributing to either New York or to Washington, D.C. I'm going to leave these cards on the table outside, so if you can pick some and take it back to your communities or donate generously, that would be great. Thank you so much.
The final announcement, actually, before we close. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock there will be a prayer service at the 96th Street Mosque, the Islamic Center. The people who run the mosque invite everybody to come. Kofi Annan will be there, and all Muslims and non-Muslims are invited to come. It's 96th Street and 3rd Avenue at 1 o'clock, 1 p.m.
Well, friends, we have to go home. This has been really the most giving of hope time together. It's really been extraordinarily helpful. I love the Yoruba questions. You know, what have we really learned from this? You know, why did God do it? But what have we really learned from this? Is, you know, is tomorrow going to be different from the day before yesterday? I mean, those are the questions, and wonderful things were said here. We have so much to take home, but we also have so much really to commit ourselves to do. They're not hard things. I mean, they take everything because we have to change old bad habits. But to love someone who's different isn't really hard. You don't have to have a graduate degree to respect someone who's wearing a turban. I think I'm going to start wearing a turban. You know, we really have got to sort of do some somersaults. We've heard since we were tiny tots that we're one family, but we really haven't believed it. And that's been the blessing in disguise of the 11th. I mean, we really see that we are one family. I mean, we were all in that. There was a wonderful, my teacher at the cathedral years ago said, where was God when the bus full of children ran off the bridge into the river? Answer, in the bus. Where was God in Auschwitz? Answer, in the oven. Where was God on the 11th? Answer, in that building. With everybody. So, we have got to be with everybody, with each other, because each other is everybody. I want to end this with two faxes that I just got this morning. One from a dear friend of the centers and a member of this community, Madam Hiroko Koyama, who's the president of the Shinji Shumeikai community in Japan. And this is dated September 12th, and it says, the numbing images of the World Trade Center towers collapsing in New York City, the smoldering wing of the Pentagon in Washington, the crash site of the hijacked passenger plane in Pennsylvania, these were sites of unbelievable heartache and suffering. In the ensuing hours since this horrible tragedy began, each time another scene of carnage revealed itself on my television screen, I went to my prayer room. In the face of such horror, there was nothing left but prayers and tears. And then she ends, at this time, let us pray more fervently than ever for world peace. Let us recognize people of all faiths and nations as our brothers and sisters. Let us join hands with them in mutual amity as we go forward. It's what everyone has said today, but she's faxed yesterday. And then this is from another colleague of ours. here speaking at the Interfaith Center, spoken twice. This is Professor Ibrahim Özdemir, who's a professor at Ankara University in Turkey, and he writes, "Dear friend, September 11th, I think, became one of the darkest pages in American history. Senseless destructions occurred at the hands of blinded terrorists whose actions cannot be justified in any logical manner and at any logical basis. I, as a Muslim scholar, was strongly appalled about the disasters that we have seen across our television sets this morning. Our hearts are filled with sorrow, but we are confident that these despicable and atrocious actions will not go unpunished. Here I send my condolences to all American friends, to the American people in this terrible act. I completely condemn this serious operation. I and my family are praying for the victims' souls and offering our comfort to their families. Our prayers are with you and innocent people at this very tragic moment. Heartfelt regards." So we've heard this again and again all morning, and it's really the same thing. And all we have to do is really believe it, is really believe what we've heard since childhood up, that we are one family, that we can all wear turbans or not wear turbans, that we can all be black or yellow or white or anything. We can be Christians, we can be Jews, we can be Muslims, we can be Jains, we can be anything, but we're all sisters and brothers. But we have to believe it, and we have to act that way, starting this instant. Thank you. No, go get some lunch.